All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a crash course for the MHCP. Super excited. If you haven't already, make sure to install the MetaQuest Link app and be logged in with your MHCP account, and then download the Horizon Worlds app. And then hit three dots in Start in Desktop Mode. If you don't see that button, you should be responding to your email and letting them know, or going to Discord, going into the MHCP, and creating a bug report. And under bug reports, you will see there's one called the build mode not accessible. I don't remember where it is. I was just there earlier. But anyway, you've always been struggling with this as well. Point is, people are struggling with this. If you don't see that bug report, just report it a bug report and say that your account doesn't have access, and they will get that sorted and such on. So starting desktop mode. There we go. Now, when you're starting in desktop mode, if you do not see this and it stays black and it never changes from the black screen, what you want to do is install DirectX, and you also want to install the C++. Oh, what's the word for it? C++. Homemed just posted it just a little bit ago. Let's see. From colon. My brain keeps forgetting the word here that goes into this space. Homed. And he says. I was imagining I would see a bunch of likes on it because I liked the message. General questions. Does Holman just post a ton? Oh, he just posts a ton. I just haven't caught up. What a great guy, you guys. Should be giving him more reactions. 11-4. People are slowly being onboarded. I have to wait for it. Let me check number 2. No, not there. 3. Go to 4. I'm looking for reacts because I know I reacted a bunch to it. So maybe this doesn't show reacts. Okay. Then I need to type in C++. Learning how to search Discord. That's also a good tutorial, good crash course here. Here it is. The redistributables. Latest Visual C++ redistributable downloads. That is what I had to install when I was getting a black screen, so you might try that if you were having any issues. Okay. La-di-da-di-da. There we go. Utilizes Discord. There's lots of great stuff here. You got the bug reporting. Apparently you can use bug reporting for feature requests. That seems like an interim until we get something better. You've got all these channels. Feel free to tag me at Lexo5 there. DMs are okay, but I really appreciate when they're in the public channels so that other people can answer it if I'm busy or just not able to get to Discord. So try there first. Today, we're going to start with a new world. We're going to start from a custom model import blank world, and we're going to call this MHCP crash course. There we go. And we'll go ahead and click create. And that is how you create a world. You can also start from a tutorial world. There's a bunch of tutorial worlds, so feel free to check those out as well. I will say that I don't care for most of the tutorial worlds. You might find some value in them, but I found that they are more confusing than they are worth, and it can take a lot of time to get to the root of how things work in there. Of course, that is still how I have to learn sometimes because I can't find the example anywhere else. But I do find that a lot of the code is obfuscated, and so you might only need one line of code, but inside of that, it is many paths down. Okay, so moving around, right-click with your mouse. You can look around. Then using WASD, you can fly left, right, up, down is Q and E for up and down, and forward and back. You use your scroll wheel while flying to increase speed. Pulling down slows you down, and then you can see that at the bottom there. Nice. And I'm on a big monitor today, so you might have to zoom in on YouTube or get a bigger monitor. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I am sorry. It is what it is, I'm afraid. We have the console at the bottom, the asset library. From the assets, you can add new assets. Assets are awesome. So you can create folders, you can upload 3D models, textures, text. Don't need to really worry about text and materials at this point. Textures are images. You'll see that in some of my tutorials. Speaking of tutorials, if you go to the Learn website, that is developers.meta.com/horizonworlds/learn. You're going to find a bunch of tutorials and program content and stuff here. I've done a few myself. I'm trying to see if I can find them for you. Oh, I need to log in, that's why. So yeah, make sure you're logged in. If you get a link and it says this doesn't exist anymore, it's because you haven't logged in. It does exist. It's just like their default message. So we can go to, once we're logged in, you can see tutorials, and then here in tutorials, these need better names. I don't think these are mine, I'm not gonna lie. Is there a different tutorial section? I haven't learned how to navigate this yet. This is a brand new website. Custom model imports. Dun, dun, dun. I've really mostly had to look for things that I knew. MHCP program. Community tutorial. Did they really put it under community tutorials? Okay, so go to community tutorials, and this one is mine. Importing images and adding texture animation. That's an advanced one, so you can check that out. This is pretty cool. It has all the information. We're actually going to go through some of this today, so I'm going to leave that open in a new tab if it'll let me. Right click, open link, a new tab. There we go. And then we've also got. Why is that the only one of mine that's in here? There should be more. I guess there isn't yet. Why not? Well, anyway, more of my tutorials should be showing up here in this section, I would imagine. I'm kind of wondering if there's another section for these. I see that there isn't a ton listed here. JavaScript to player measure has a custom model import. We just looked at that one. Most of mine start with the type of it. TypeScript API. Here we go. This is another awesome one. JSON player persistent variables. This allows you to store up to 10,000 characters in a string-like format, also known as a JSON object. That's a much deeper topic, but this tutorial will teach you a lot about that. So feel free to check this one out. And I think that's it for the ones that are posted. There's more coming soon, so stay tuned for those. All right, so with that, we're going to hop back over here to the desktop editor. We were learning to fly around. We're doing good on that. The next thing I want to show you that I think is super cool, especially with the current mobile thing that's going on, when you click on the properties panel or you click on the gizmo or whatever it is, you get a properties panel on the right here. You can choose spawn on start as usual, but you also have this new button called Force Horizon World's Cross-Screen Camera. This means you can change it so that people spawn in first person. If you notice when I spawn in right now, I spawn in third person. But if I click on this and change it to first person and jump in, there it is. Now it's in first person. So that's super cool. No coding required. I love that. I want more tools like that. So if Meta is listening, please make more awesome tools like this. These are the best. So easy to implement. However, I will admit that over the last week and a half, our latest World Power Watch has this feature enabled, and we actually have noticed that even though it's set to first, it's been coming in third, and so we had to write some code to address that as a player enters the world to force them into first person. So, but that's new. I think that's a bug, and hopefully it'll be fixed soon. I've reported it, so here's to hoping. Next up on the cool agenda, check out these AI tools, and whatever you do, as of the time of writing, do not use the TypeScript one. It's so bad. I don't even want to demo it because every time I've tested it so far, it's been so bad. Geez, change the place. Like, I kind of want to see if their examples even return something good. I'm like literally going to try. Like, I just don't recommend this. This is not how you should learn. They have somebody I know well working on this to make it better, and hopefully they do. Player.location.speed.set 210 on player enter world code block events dot. And this is just a really bad way to do this as well. This might actually be functioning. I'm not entirely sure. Speed changer extends component. This is close, but it's probably because they tested this one to like heck and back. I'm not sure about this locomotion speed, but that's the thing, is that it uses the wrong words left and right. Just don't do this, okay? And also you don't want to do it in this format. I'm going to show you some good formats momentarily. This is a bad one. All right. Over here on the music, though, music's amazing, okay? This thing is great. We can do, and it's mostly great for horror sounds. Like, watch this. Ice cream truck. drives by. You're about to hear some of the worst horror you've ever heard. Let's change it to the maximum, like 10 seconds to generate. But it is super useful, and you get unique sound effects, which is awesome. Hit play. Yeah. Straight up horror sounds every single time. It just doesn't understand what an ice cream truck is, I guess. I don't know. But point is, what you can do that's really good is watch this. You can say, race car driving. And you'll actually get race car sounds. That's pretty neat. And so I've been using this, obviously, in Power Wash. We got lots of different car types, and I use this to generate specific car type sounds. And you get 4, and you can pick the best one, and that one was actually pretty decent. As you can see, just play around with this. Definitely pretty cool. Lots of fun. Learning how to prompt is going to be insanely important in the future, so let's get started now with the sound effects would be my recommendation. Okay, I guess I should have shown how to use that for those actually wanting to use that. So we're going to do a quick demo. We'll call this sparkly sound effect. Okay, and we want this to be a short 3-second sound. Click generate, and we'll find one that sounds good. Nice. Okay, so we hit 3 dots. Saved asset library. Now this is going to save it to whatever folder you have currently selected. I'm just throwing this into my junk folder, also known as my assets. But usually I'd recommend creating like a folder for your project and then saving it into that project. And so now we can pull out our sound effect. There it is. And now that it's in the scene, we can rename it. I recommend giving these good names. There we go. So sparkly sound effects. Maybe keep it short to SFX. Sweet. Naming in Horizon on VR never mattered. In here, it matters so much because everything you do has this hierarchy where you're going to be seeing everything, knowing where to select, what to select. So definitely a lot more important now. So I definitely encourage you to get in the habit of naming good, naming conventions. Here we can change the volume. 0.6, you're going to notice this is going to like fail over and over and over again. So you have to actually put 6 in and then put a decimal place. Really annoying. I think I tried to report it using this little like bug reporting tool. I don't know. Point is, really annoying. So anyway, now that we've changed it, you can also change it by highlighting this and changing it to 0.5. We've got pitch adjustments like usual, minimum distance, how close do you have to be for it to not be just like in your ears, and then maximum distance, something like 25 is probably good. And then we hit play. Nice. And then that is a great start, but let's make it like do something, right? So we don't want this to play on world start. We want this to play when a player enters a trigger. So we go down to the drop down for shapes, and you'll see gizmos as an option. You've also got your sound. Colliders are super awesome. These are super efficient. That's a whole topic debating whether we get into immediately, but we're going to try and come back to that. But they're super awesome, so you don't have to just make invisible cues anymore. And they're going to be more efficient as well. We can now pull out a trigger zone. And trigger zone, we want this trigger to be at the same position as our sound effect. So check this out. Clicking on the sound, we can right-click on position, click copy position, click on the trigger, right-click, paste, and now it's in the exact same position. I can't see it though. So we're going to call this the sound effects trigger. And then over here on the left, we can click on the sparkly sound effects, and then we can change the scale to 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. And using the tab key on my keyboard, I can quickly switch between these properties. You can see tab, tab, tab. It's nice. There we go. Now we can't see the trigger or the sound effects. So we need a visual indicator. So we go and grab a shape. These are tri-mesh shapes. Or excuse me, I'm supposed to say custom model import. Tri-mesh word has been nixed, axed, canceled by Meta. So I don't know why people are still using it. I think it's because they're not coming down super hard on it, but maybe they will soon. I don't know. So anyway, point is we were told not to use it. Okay, we've got this cube. If I right-click and paste position, ta-da! But that's not great because now we can't get to the trigger. So let's switch to the scale tool, and using the scale tool, we can flatten. Now we don't have snapping like we have in VR, so you just kind of have to like eyeball it, but you can always come back in VR to snap things better. And now we're going to go ahead and hit play world and jump into preview. Now I have to hit play. If you hit preview, it should automatically start. There are some options here to auto start preview on entry and auto stop simulation on exit. Those are on by default. I've turned them off so that my world doesn't stop when I have testers in it and I go into build mode. Anyway, here we go. Oh no, it doesn't do anything because we didn't write the script. But we can see it, we can walk around it, pretty neat. Let's say, I prefer first person, but really if you're going to develop for mobile, you should probably get used to third person because most of the experience are in third person, and I definitely heard a lot of positive feedback about wanting it to be in third person from users who've been playing games because they like to see their avatar. They dressed it up nice, they want to see it. It's kind of neat. Okay, so we've got to write a script. So we go to the scripts dropdown and click new script. Now today, I mean, you could go into code blocks, but you'd have to be in VR. So we're going to be learning TypeScript. And so this is going to be the play sound effects trigger. And I have a naming convention where I do underscore and then entity at the end. This lets me know that it needs to be attached to an entity. Entity is the new word for object. Object is what we used to call all the things you could attach a script to, but today we now call that an entity. And that is because the word object refers to a JSON object, which is a data type in TypeScript, so we just don't use that word anymore. All right, so we got our play sound effects trigger. We're going to open this up in external editor. You're going to need to have installed Visual Studio Code or VS Code, and you'll also need to restart your computer if you haven't done that. Otherwise, this will not open up. So install VS Code, restart your computer, then continue. We can then click yes, I trust the authors, and yes, we will allow to use the TypeScript version. We do not want a survey. And now that we have this open, I'm going to zoom it in for you because I assume most people won't be able to see this. So where's my plus button? There we go. And you can collapse this menu by clicking this button here. Kind of nice. So you can collapse. And I love this side menu because you can see all your scripts, but you can just collapse it if you need. There's a search button, which is super cool as well. Lots of awesome tools in VS Code. Now, the first thing I do is I don't like HZ dots, so I get rid of the first import line and delete the two HZ dots. If you are an HZ dot fan, you can keep them, but I am not. I like clean, easy to read code, and the dots get in the way. So we backspace the T, retype the T, press enter. That will auto import the component. Now, if you're watching this tutorial and you are on a Mac and you don't have a Windows, you're not all hope is lost. You can go to horizon.meta.com/worlds. Oh, wrong button. Let's try that again. Horizon, let's see, worlds all. There it is. And so you can see your worlds here. And when you're on this page, there's a button here for scripts. So here we are in the MHCP crash course. I can hit scripts. And this is going to open an online web editor. Now, I do not recommend using this web editor. You technically can, like, ooh, there it is. I guess I didn't hit save here. Control save. I don't know. I've never done this before. Is that going to actually update here? If I hit refresh, does it update? There it goes. Oh, it did update, but it took a second. Don't use this, okay? Hit this download button, download it, open it in VS Code. This is where you create new scripts. You'll have to create your scripts and then download it. So whatever you're planning to make a bunch of those, download it, and then come back here and copy paste from VS Code into here. It's tedious, but VS Code supports auto typing. This doesn't. It's such a pain to use this web editor. Definitely use VS Code. Okay, so now you know how to get here and utilize that feature. So we're going to close out of that. We're heading back over here into our script. And we've got import component from Horizon Core now because we backspace the T, retype the T, press enter to import the component. What the heck is this script? That's a good question. This probably looks super scary. This is the equivalent of when world is started in code blocks. This is like the wrapper that would be your script. This here is the name of the script. So we have play sound effects, and this is like what you would name it at the top of your script properties panel, or script gizmo inside of Horizon code blocks. Now, there's a bunch of stuff here, but props is what we call properties, and properties is what's displayed on the properties panel of the gizmo. So this is where you would, inside of these curly braces is where you would put anything that goes on the properties panel. So if you needed volume, numbers, identification, names, etc. That would all go into there. But for the most part, I don't use props unless I have to. So I mostly use it for defining entities, which remember as objects. So whether that's like referencing another sound effect. This is the trigger, and we do need to reference a sound effect. So let's go ahead and try that. We click enter. It's going to break this into multiple lines. We can then name this, and this is the sound effect. And so we say SFX, just like we would in code blocks, colon is going to allow us to define what it is. And then we say this is a, we're going to do curly braces. This one's weird. Okay, I'm not going to lie. This one is weird. So just like, bear with me here. We type prop types and then dot entity. This is how you define a property on the properties panel, okay? It's very different than how we would do anything else. Otherwise, inside of TypeScript, excuse me. But like, this is how to define it for the properties panel. So it's got these kind of like curly braces here. It's got like the type being defined as a prop types.entity. Like normally we define an entity like this. We would say the sound effects question mark is of type entity semicolon. That is how you would do it in normal TypeScript. Says this is a property called sound effect. It might be undefined, so it's got a question mark, and it's of type entity. This is the normal way. This is how to do it so it ends up on the properties panel. Okay. Now we need this to be on the properties panel so we can drag the reference fill. So that's why we put this here. If you needed other types of property, like let's say you wanted a number property, you can have a default value for it of, let's say, 0. And then we'd say, we'll just call this sound effects 1. But yeah, so that's how you would do like a default number. You can do that with strings as well, and so on. Okay. Now that we've got our sound effect on the properties panel, we need to be able to play that sound effect. So we have our when world is started. That doesn't give us when trigger is entered. The last line here is registering the component so that it can be, this script can be attached to the trigger in Horizon. You'll also notice this part here that probably seems a little confusing. So class is play sound effects. It extends component. Component gives us access to all of the things Horizon, like when world is started. It also gives us access to a new thing called pre-start, and you can press enter to auto-complete that. I like to put some space, and I also prefer not to show the colon voids. Start is technically also a colon void, but like I said, I just prefer not to see it. When you don't have it there, it is void. Void meaning that it does not return anything. That's a special property in TypeScript that we didn't have in events. We'll get to it at some point, but it's really advanced, so we're not going to talk about it today. So we have pre-start, and this pre-start happens before the start event for all other entities. So you can guarantee that this is going to happen, which is why we use it for connecting events. And so unlike code blocks, where you can just say player enter trigger, and if this is running on a trigger, then it receives, sorry, I'm typing out the parameter. So you have to type in player colon, and then it's of type player. That's the parameter. This would never be received. So this is like a custom method. It doesn't have anything to connect to. So what we have to do in pre-start is say connect code block event parentheses. This allows us to fill it out. So you get, it says you need to pass in an entity or a player. This dot entity refers to self. And so we know that self is the trigger. So this dot entity allows us to connect the trigger event, and the trigger has a code block events. Make sure it has an S, and then dot, and you can find a drop-down list of all of the events for code blocks. And we have on player enter trigger. You can also just type trigger to see specifically trigger events, and you can find on player enter trigger and click on it, or arrow key to get to as well. Now to connect this on player enter trigger to our local player enter trigger, we type player enter trigger dot bind parentheses this. And what that's going to do is it's going to pass the parameters of on player enter trigger to our local method player enter trigger. So if we hover over on player enter trigger, you'll see it is entered by a type of player, and I just renamed entered by to player, and that's what's received here. Okay, I personally got a naming convention where I like to do the remove the on and then type this, so player enter trigger, and then we use camel case for our method names. You definitely want to get into the good practice of using these. So there we go, player enter trigger. And now when the player enters the trigger, we want to play the sound effect. So to do that, we need to refer to our properties panel, which we can do by typing props press enter to autocomplete. That one's a little harder to type all props out before clicking enter. But getting into the habit of clicking enter is going to make coding so much faster for you. And then props is just a weird one where if you see me do that again, let's try that one more time. If I type P, R, O, it's there, but if I type another P, it returns prop. And if I type S, then it gets back to props. So you got to be careful. If you type prop, you'll accidentally get the wrong thing. So you want to make sure it's either just make sure you're hitting enter on props. Okay, so this dot props. Then we hit dot again, and we get a drop-down list of all the properties. In this case, we only have one item, which is sound effects. We'll click enter again. And then sound effect is a sound or is an audio gizmo. So we type dot as, and this allows us to cast the type into an audio gizmo. So we can say audio gizmo. And then, now that we've cast it as an audio gizmo, we can type dot play, and then parentheses at the end allows it to actually play the audio gizmo. This question mark says if I forgot to reference it on the properties panel because the sound effect could be undefined, then don't play the audio. There's better ways to do this, but this is just a nice way of getting it to work for now. Okay, so over here, the script is compiling. You can see it's just compiled. We'll get a bunch of notifications here on the compilation process. We can go ahead and click clear. We need to click on our trigger to attach the script on the bottom of the properties panel, just like in Code or in Horizon VR. We can drop down and select our script. You'll notice that it's the name of the script, colon, the name of the thing, the class, right? So we want to go ahead and drop down and select that. If you rename this, you will have to reselect it from the dropdown. If you rename the script, same thing. So just try to get the naming right at the beginning. Now we need to reference the sound effect. Now you remember, giving it a good name becomes important here because when we click on this, you can search, you can also select. Because we have so few items, we can just select it, but I would type in sound effects, SFX, and then I could find the sound effects I want and click on it. You can also drag and drop by pulling this over and dropping it in here, so that's another option. And that's the sound effects. So now we'll go ahead and hit play, jump into preview mode, and now we can walk onto this. Well, I did expect that to work. Curious. Click on this, referencing. Oh, I dragged sound effects trigger, not sparkly sound effects. So you remember how I mentioned this just doesn't do anything if it's wrong? Yeah, it just didn't do anything. So we'll go ahead and hit refresh and jump into preview mode. There we go. And like that, we have our sound effect playing. And we have some new visual effects. So if we go back into our script, we can actually duplicate our sound effects. So Control C, Control V will duplicate the line. We can change this to VFX, and that's also an entity. And then down here, we can copy paste this line, Control C, Control V. And VFX happen to have a very similar property, but they are particle gizmos. And they also have a dot play. So we can just keep that more or less the same. Now that we've updated the script to include a visual effect, we'll see that property is going to appear here after compilation is completed. There it is. And now what we need to do is go into our dropdown for gizmos, and we should have a bunch of new particle effects. I haven't seen this yet, so I might be in the wrong spot for it. Dropdown. Okay, they're not in here. Euphoria, have you seen the new particle effects yet? Are they in the asset section?
They're in the asset and the gizmos, I believe.
Interesting. So these are like brand new gizmos for that's an interesting way of doing it. Okay, and then they've got Steam Engine. Sweet stuff. Let's hit looping so we can see these in action. And I'm so excited to see these. Stop and play. Oh, look at that. It's hard to see, but yeah, that's cool. Steam boiling. Stop and play. I don't see anything. Oh, there it is. Ooh, look at that. Crazy. Steam engine? Okay. Wow. Steam pipe? Oh, wow. These are so neat. All right, so there's lots of new visual effects. Check those out. We wanted to, wow, they got new confetti effects. Confetti burst. Oh, that's a new confetti burst. Whoa. Confetti falling. Oh, my goodness. Wow, the treats we've been given today. Someone watching this in a year is going to be like, we've had those for a year. What are you talking about? Birds. Is there more than one type of bird? No. Oh, it's a different. What the heck is this? Isn't the birds? What is this? That is not the birds we all know and love. Oh my gosh, that's a trip. I was not expecting that. Okay, water? What the heck does water look like? Water splash. Whoa, okay. Yeah, these are interesting. They're almost a little too realistic for me. I, yeah, it's curious. I like the playful ones that we had before, but these aren't bad. Okay, sparks. What do we got? Electric sparks. Ooh, that's dangerous. Let's go to electric loop. Ooh, sorry, flashing warning, right? Okay, lighter. Play. Nice. That one might be my new favorite. Hi, Nalia. My daughter just woke up. Okay, so we're going to use the lighter because it's got a fun effect. And what we're going to do is click on the trigger, right-click, copy position just like before, right-click, paste, and now it's in position. We want to slide that up, and we want you to be able to see that when you walk into it, so we'll move it forward using those sliders. Now we need to reference that, so we're going to call this Sparkly VFX, and now we can attach that here. And so, some pretty basics. Definitely recommend starting with the basics, That's always fun. Okay. That feels like that would look better in first person. So we'll try it in first person. Click, switch to first person, jump into preview mode. Nice. That's a lot better. Very cool. All right. So you can imagine taking that and extrapolating it. So the next thing I thought is if you are building and you want to make effects happen, effects are like everything. What if you want to play haptics on a player, right? So we have this player parameter entering the trigger. The way you access things in TypeScript is very different. So if we type player, we then get a drop-down list of all the things we can do with the player. So we can apply force to them, we get their foot position, we can set their gravity. That's all on this drop-down list. You'll also see we have play animation, so that's pretty cool. You can set aim assist targets, but that only works on local scripts. I think animation only works on local scripts too. But the thing that we're looking for is play haptics. And I was kind of expecting to see it here in this list. Let me just check. Okay, haptics is not here. And so what we do when we don't find something immediately, we need to figure out where it is. So for reference, in my worlds, I actually have built a utility file that kind of aims to represent like actions. So the actions tab of code blocks. So I've always just typed action utils.play haptics. But if we need to learn how to access haptics, we can go to types. And in this types dropdown, we can select Horizon Core. And then from Horizon Core, if we hit Command F, we can type in haptic. And haptic has 12 things in here, so we can see the strength of the haptic pulse. We can skip through these pretty fast. The sharpness of the haptics, so remember these from in code blocks as well, they're the same thing. We have our haptic strength, and I feel like we've missed it now. We've gone through the whole thing. Oh, here it is, play haptics. Look at there it is. Okay, so we've got play haptics, and if we scroll up, you notice it's inside of this curly braces. You'll see export player hand extends player body part. So it looks like the player's hand is where we play the haptics. Okay, so we weren't on the wrong track, but we just weren't deep enough. So we take player dot hand. We have left hand or right hand. We'll say left hand dot play haptics. There it is. I'm not gonna lie, I really do feel like this has made some mistakes, which is part of the reason I made my own version of play haptics. Maybe I'll show you here in a minute. But we have play haptics needs a duration. It says the duration in milliseconds, so similar to VR. So we can say 1,000 milliseconds is a second. So we'd say, let's say 250 milliseconds, so a quarter of a second. The strength is the haptic strength, so you type haptic strength capital, click enter to autocomplete. That'll also import it to your imports line here at the top. And then after haptic strength, you type the dot and you get a drop-down list for all of the haptic options. And so let's place some medium strength haptics, and then we need haptic sharpness. And if you're not familiar with haptic sharpness, this is the curvature of the haptics. So you can make a coarse curve. So you can think about this going up and down rapidly. So it's kind of like coarse. Sharp is where it goes straight up and then straight down, or soft where it curves up and curves down. I prefer soft and use the others where you need them. So like a bullet being fired out of a gun would use something like sharp. Like a pinata hit might be coarse. I don't know. Maybe that's still sharp. I'm trying to think of something coarse where you're like rough feeling. But yeah, you get the idea. I think hit Control C, Control V, and switch this to the right hand. And now we've played haptics on both hands. And that's pretty neat. And if we hover over play haptics, yeah, that's totally fine. This is all good. So you could, if you needed to, say if like handedness left. I don't know why. So, I don't know what I'm writing here. This is crazy. But I have a property inside of my world called player data, and inside of player data, I have a handedness property, handedness, which would allow me to do handedness.left triple equals handedness.left. Then we could play it on just the left hand, like so, and then else we would play it on the right hand. Haptic feedback is super important for making experiences, feel really good. So you could also have a variable on like a player data called like is right-handed. Like that's totally another option. And then this is backwards at that point, right? So you go all Control Z, Control Z. Alt arrow, arrow. There we go. So you could do that too. Point is, right now we don't have a player data file. If you want to get into player data, check out that tutorial I showed earlier, the one on JSON objects. That was TypeScript API. Open the new tab. These really need better names. But let's see. Yeah, this one here is going to teach you all about JSON objects. You'll see we create player variables, and I believe, I don't know if I have player info is what I call it here. I've changed since then to, I think I call it player data now. But player info, you see, stores string, player visit. Oh no, that's, anyway, I definitely do it slightly different today, but it's similar to this. And I think this is just a more basic example to get you started. But yeah, basically every player has a bunch of data stored on them, and then whenever they grab something, you can check if it was their right hand or their left hand, and then set that player data. So anyway, check that out. It's an advanced tutorial, but a lot of fun. Okay, we are still rolling here, guys. This has been a really basic TypeScript journey. Control save. There is so much to explore in TypeScript, and working to make more and more content. If you have questions, definitely drop them in the Discord. So feel free to come on over here to scripting and chat with us there. Next. Euphoria, how did you feel about this? Did this like show you some cool tricks for coding in TypeScript?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome. I think doing it is the most important. So unfortunately, you're just watching. But one of the things that my teachers taught me in college was you have to do it 3 times. You watch it in class, you write it down as you're watching it in class, and then later you do it, and now you've learned it. So 3 times to learn: watch, write, do. You're like, I'm not writing this down. Oh shit, you're not supposed to be. You're fine. But definitely, I do recommend later on to go ahead and give this a try. These little simple scripts can really unlock quite a bit of power. Excuse me. Okay. A lot of people ask me, how did I learn? And there is a really great website for this. Go to horizonhub.info. This is Waffle's tool. You can create an account or apply to get an account. I don't remember exactly the process, but definitely you want to get into here. You can head into the script editor, and they've got some really cool tricks. So if you go to the navigate, there's some documents here, and they have a TypeScript guide. And the TypeScript to code blocks is the one that I started with. It's this right here. The one that I write is a lot more outdated. This is probably the latest version, but it shows you what it looks like. So when projectile hits player, it shows you what that looks like. And I've kind of showed you more or less what that looks like. because you just you do the code block events dot and you get a list of the things. But when I was starting out, I would just basically open this document, hit Command F, and everything I was trying to learn, like haptics, here it would pop up, here's play haptics, right hand dot play haptics, and that's how I would learn this. I will say that I find this bit a little bit confusing. I definitely did not understand this when I first saw it because this isn't a player, right? I need more like, for me personally, I need more lengthy examples that really show it in action, like if this had been in a player entered trigger method, and then it showed that like I just showed you. I find that's a lot more helpful, but the first 2 months I was starting in TypeScript, I was definitely in this document a lot, trying to learn how to do everything. And yeah, so a lot of people ask me where I learned. There is a cool tool here as well. If you go into settings, you can turn on non-horizon features and then show TypeScript equivalent. I'm not sure exactly how you get access to that because he has to know that you're in the program, but I'm sure you can tell waffle. But once you've done that, you can actually see what your script would look like if it had been written in TypeScript. So here we have a code block script being converted to TypeScript live. So we can say when world is started, which doesn't do anything because you always have to have a start method. And then we could go to actions and say display text. And it says fix errors in display text before it will actually show it. And so we need to have an object variable, right? So we need a text object. So we'll create a text object, click create. And we also need a string. We could create a string variable, but we're going to use a string input, value input. And we can say hello world, exclamation point. And this is a quick hello world. So, it says in the properties, interesting. This should say in the properties. I don't know how this expects you to get the text entity. I was expecting it to put inside the props because it's a property. Curious. Very curious. Well, anyway, point is this should have been inside of here. I'm curious, can I just edit this? No, I can't. Theoretically, this would be helpful. But anyway, that's that. So another quick note here, and you'll see this in his notes, do not use the exclamation point. You definitely want to use question marks at all times. So anyway, just wanted to show you that this exists. Moving on. I wanted to quickly talk about importing images because I feel like that's a pretty hot topic. I've already received a couple messages this week about this topic, so thought it would be great to discuss it and just kind of go over some basics because there's quite a bit to know. So the first thing to import an image that you need to do is literally follow this tutorial because this tutorial shows you exactly that. It teaches you how to bring in an image and then it shows you how to animate that image. So this is definitely a tutorial for you. This took me, to present this would take about 2 hours, so we're not going to present the entire thing. But I did want to show you like the basics because I feel like that gets lost. Now, again, if you don't have Windows computer, I am understanding of that as I'm a Mac person myself. You can go to that same website, Horizon Worlds All, and then to the left you'll see my assets, and from my assets you can upload an asset. And you'll click import 3D model. You'll notice you do not have access to upload a texture, an image texture, which means you cannot actually complete this tutorial that I just shown you here. Unfortunately, this requires the desktop editor to be uploading textures. I have been begging for months that they add this feature to the dropdown. I believe, a friend who has that feature listed in this dropdown. I don't know if that's true. No, that's a different feature they have in this dropdown. Point is, I can't imagine it's that hard to add texture. They have text. Right? Text is not a texture. Text is literally a JSON object data file. So like a .js, .ts, something like that. I haven't actually used it yet, but the point is you can upload a 3D model. You drag and drop the file into here, and then that's going to upload it. Now note that this doesn't work most of the time. I don't know why, but it will fail over and over and over again. And the third time is usually the charm for me. I usually get it on the second, third, or fourth try. Sometimes it'll take me 6 tries, but when you upload here, it's way less stable. and I don't. It's something about being in the browser. So just like if it's continuously loading and it doesn't give you a red dot, like see these yellow symbols, it'll be a yellow or a red symbol like this one, and that lets you know what the error is. So this yellow symbol means it's still going to work, but there's something weird about it. Like in this case, it's probably an offset pivot point. In this case, it was expecting a texture named m_br, but did not find it. And if we click on this, you'll see that that's what we need to do. We needed to upload this image. We needed to upload this 3D model with the texture image named m_br. And I probably did that. I guess I didn't. Your asset timed out. Interesting. I wonder how long it takes to time out because it sure doesn't seem like they time out very often. I felt like I've had some just going circles forever. But yeah, if you're seeing circles and it's not finishing within a couple minutes, you just need to re-upload it and just keep trying. Okay, so we're going to use the desktop editor though. And we're also going to be using Blender, which I believe I have installed. Blender, there we are. All right, so in Blender, we're going to quickly make an image FBX file. So this is going to allow you to upload an image. Blender, I don't see anything here. Are you broken? Oh, there you go. So as always, right-click, delete the cube. And then we're going to go click Add Mesh Plane. You know I'm going fast here, guys. Just a lot of content to cover. So moving around in Blender, I find insanely difficult. I've really done my best not to use Blender unless I need to. If you want to learn Blender, chat about it in the Discord. It's a great place. There's also a ton of tutorials online on both TypeScript and Blender. I do think TypeScript's a lot harder to learn than Blender is. There's the importing process of Blender, but like I'm going to teach you that right now. But the TypeScript stuff is mostly a Horizon API that you're learning, like you're learning about the gizmo types and how to use them and all the things, where you won't find that online. But you will find out 3D modeling stuff on Blender online. So definitely check this stuff out. I also watch a lot of coding tutorials online myself, or coding videos. They're my favorite. They're not my favorite. I just like them. Okay, so brain's going too fast by slowing down, slowing down. Up here, we have our plane. When we click on that, we can click the red ball, beach ball-like icon for material, and then we can click New. We need to create a new material on this. This material is exported in the FBX and tells Horizon what we are trying to import. So I like to type in image, and then image allows us to, that's it, we're done. We've created the image. We click File. I'm not even kidding, it's that easy. And then click FBX, and then save this. I'm going to save this to my downloads. I'm just going to call this image.fbx. And now you can upload all of your image using this one FBX file. So click export. Oh, there's already one here. I've already done this before. I've done this tutorial before. Export FBX as image 2. All right, so we got image 2 exported, and we're done with Blender. Absolutely done. Well, that's not entirely true, but we'll come back to that. So now that we got image 2, we're going to click Add New 3D Model, choose File on your device, and we'll go to our Downloads folder. And in Downloads, we have image 2, so we'll go ahead and click Open. And now you need to have, and you can turn off Preserve Offset Pivots. I think I prefer them off, I'm not really sure. I haven't learned a good process. It's a relatively new feature they just added, that checkbox there. Downloads, I've already created an image called image_br. You can see that right here. I don't know what this image is. Hopefully it's nothing crazy. But it has to be named image_br. And if you want a different image, you need to rename your previous image_br so that you can create a different image_br to upload your second image. We're then going to click Open and then click Import. All right, our image is now importing. We'll see that here momentarily. Now, positioning things on the desktop editor is genuinely quite hard. So you've seen a couple cool tricks. I'm going to show you a couple quick more. And so this image should be done any second now. I'm going to just click here and then click there. Ah, there it goes. It just finished. All right, come on, going back. And now we can click and hold to drag this asset out of our asset library. And the desktop editor is going to try to guess where you want to place this. Guess is a great loose term to use. So now that I've got my image here, we want to rotate this and put it where our visual effect is. And to do that, we're going to click on the rotation tool. Now let's start with the position tool. So we click on this guy here, right-click, copy position, and then right-click on this and paste position. Now we've got it in the right position, but the rotation is wrong. We could zero out the rotation, like if you're snapped with the grid, but if you're not snapped with the grid, you might want to click on this, and you'll notice it's gone invisible. I'll explain that in a second. You can then copy the rotation, so if you have an object that's not snapped with the grid, but you want your object, your picture to be snapped, it's rendered from the other side, so it's only one side visible, just for reference. We can click on our image and then paste the rotation that we copied. Then we can go up to the rotation gizmo or the rotation tool. Clicking on this turns on snap rotation. We can then type in 90 degrees. And then if I fly up above it, I can then snap rotate this by 180 degrees so that it's facing and all in line with the visual effects. Now try that out. And when we walk up, kind of okay. Not the best thing I've ever seen, but it is a thing, right? It does a thing, and we've got an image. Yeah, so there you have it. That is bringing in an image. So what if you want to do crazy stuff to that image? That is where this other tutorial comes in, and it should show you a decent amount of this. So if you want to do like transparency, if you want to crop like a masked image out, if you want to use unlit so it doesn't have light and shadows, if you want to use metallic. And so in here you can see dithering. If you use masking on a transparent image, you're going to get dithering like this. So definitely recommend using transparent. And I believe in this tutorial we have some advanced stuff in here like animated PNGs. Is it in here? Oh, maybe it's not. Add more textures. No, that's not it. Create scripts. Animation PNG review. Transparent image. Maybe we don't touch on transparent image. Do we here? Maybe I touched on it in my live workshop, Erase Alpha. Okay. Oh, no, I do. Here it is. Okay. So there's a large number of software options to choose from. Oh, this is too complicated to explain in this class. Like I said, this is a 2-hour tutorial. I'm trying to jam it into this 2-hour tutorial. Let's go back to the cheat sheet, okay? This cheat sheet is super valuable. We just did the image.fbx. We named it in Blender image. So you remember me naming the material image in Blender. It's then uploaded with a file named image_br. If you want to make this metallic, you can use those exact same 2 files and add an additional image_meo.png. MEO stands for metallic emission and occlusion, where occlusion is where you'd see shadows, emission is where you would see light being emitted from it, so it looks unlit, more or less, and metallic is like how shiny it is. This is still named image in Blender, but you can create a secondary image, which we see in here. When you go into Blender, you will have an option. I was expecting to see it. Maybe it's a little bit further down. Called Texture Paint. And if you go into Texture Paint, you can click the New button to create a new image. And in that image, you can click on the color property, which will then show you a color wheel. Select RGB. Red, green, blue correlates to MEO, metallic emission occlusion, ranging from 0 to 1, where 1 is 100% metallic, 0 is no metallic, green is 0 emissive, 1 is 100% emissive, and then I believe it's 0 is completely occluded and 1 is not occluded, so you'd want to make sure your occlusion is set to 1. This will create, so you can see here we set it to 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Here's a diagram of the MEO and MESA values. And when we create that, we can then export this value and upload it. And I believe, and if we go back to the examples, right? Nope, we don't have those examples here. Where do we have those examples? We should have those examples somewhere. I thought we just saw them. Here it is. So here you can see the MEO image. And so uploading with 0.5, 0.05 is just like really dull, right? So it's slightly occluded, it's slightly emissive, it's slightly metallic, just a very dull. If you have it set to 100 or 0% occluded. Yeah, the reason this is black is because it's 100% occluded. I didn't know that at the time. I was like, I didn't add any occlusion. What is it doing? It's because 0 means it's fully occluded, 1 means it's not occluded. So definitely set your occlusion to 1. The more you know. Okay, so back up here on our cheat sheet, we've got a bunch of different types. So we just talked about the metal images. There's also unlit. It's named unlit image underscore unlit in Blender. So you add this underscore unlit, and then you upload the file as image underscore B rather than BR. So slightly different naming convention. And then unlit blend image allows you to have transparency on it, and you name it image underscore blend in Blender and upload it with image underscore BA. So not BR now, it's BA. That means it'll use the alpha channel. Then we have transparent images, which are uploaded with the same image underscore BR. They are named image underscore transparent in Blender, and they're uploaded with a secondary image called image underscore Mesa. The Mesa correlates to your same metallic emission. S is specular, which behaves the same way as occlusion. And then A is alpha, where it uses the alpha channel for your transparency channel. It's very hard to set these up exactly how you want them, but you can use like tools to get your transparency to come in the way you want. It's just difficult, just long and short of it. Masked images are super easy, but they don't support partial transparency, otherwise you get dithering. You name it image underscore masked in Blender, upload it with an image underscore BA, and then it uses the alpha channel to crop the image. Then UIO is how you make animated images, and so this is user interface optimized, and so it's named image underscore UIO in Blender. That got cut off, that's weird. And then image underscore BA is what it's uploaded with. And then this is slightly higher resolution and designed for being swapped out. I think I've tried this since making this tutorial, and I believe you can actually animate other types of these. Pretty confident. I think you can like literally animate anything. Maybe, maybe not. Might have to do some more testing on that. I mean, I guess we could do the test real quick. We've got an image here. Yeah, sure, let's do a quick test. So we go to scripts, go to create new script, and we're going to call this swap image underscore entity, enter. All right, so we got our swap image underscore entity. We're going to open that in our external editor. We're going to do the same thing as before. We delete the imports, delete the HC dots, and then we backspace the T, retype the T, click enter. And what we want to do is create a property for the image we want to display. And so we'll call this the alt image, which will be type prop types dot asset. Now for reference, it took me a long time to memorize this format. I used to just like look at previous examples and then anyway, just like muscle memory. I definitely encourage people to type their code. Don't use like a AI autocomplete. Sometimes it'll be wrong, but it'll also just like prevent you from getting the muscle memory you need to be able to type code, at will and get really fast at typing. So anyway, alt image is an asset, meaning it comes from the asset library. So now on world start, we're going to say this dot entity dot as parentheses mesh entity dot texture, dot set texture, sure, and then dot parentheses, and then this dot props dot alt image dot as parentheses texture asset. And now this is unhappy because it might be undefined. And so what we need to do is define a constant here. So we say constant texture asset. And you'll notice that we use lowercase, so camel case, to define our variables, whereas the type texture asset is capitalized, so Pascal case. And so we say texture asset equals, we can then cut this out of here, Control X, Control V, add a semicolon. And now if we hover over this, you can see that it's either a texture asset or undefined. We can pass texture asset in here. It's still unhappy. So we need to say if parentheses texture asset is truthy, curly braces, alt era. I personally prefer to put it in curly braces like this so it's clear that it's inside the if statement. You technically don't have to have it. You'll notice that's why it disappeared. You can have it like this, but I am very much a proponent for using curly braces like that. I just like the way it looks as well. Either way is okay. So this is called checking if it's truthy. It means if the thing is relatively true, so it's defined, meaning it's true. If it's undefined, that's considered false, and so, or falsy. So this is truthy, meaning we can actually run this line of code. Okay, so this is on world start going to swap the image out, and we're going to click on this and attach the swap image script. And we can see that it needs a reference to an image. And I've got some images from Power Wash, so I feel like that's probably the way to go since I don't know where my other images are. So in Power Wash, we have boards or instructions, we sometimes call them. And this is actually straight out of the animated image tutorial. So come on, open it. There we go. And go ahead, click on this. We have the Keep It Kind board, so we're going to just drag the Keep It Kind board in. And that should swap out the image. Let's go ahead and hit play. Oh, it works. Wow. Yeah, so this wasn't a UIO image, and I was able to swap the texture. At the time of making this tutorial, I was convinced you had to do a UIO. I've only just recently accidentally discovered that you didn't have to have a UIO. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not to do it this way, but anyway, obviously it worked. There you go. So that's how you swap an image. Now the next question might be like, how do you delay swapping an image? Which is where I can show you a really cool trick, which is called loop. Loop. This is one of my favorite tricks in TypeScript. We can move this into the loop method, and then on start we can call loop using async. So we say async.setInterval, which allows us to start a loop. Let's start with set timeout though, so that you can learn like the basics. So set timeout is going to allow us to call something with a delay. And so we say, you have to draw an arrow function is usually the best way to do this, and then comma, and then the amount of time you want it to take. So say 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds. And then we say in the curly braces, loop, parentheses. And so this is going to call this dot loop. So everything inside of this, these curly braces here, is like a function. It's kind of like an if statement a little bit. I'm going to shift Control Alt Z, shift, ooh, wrong button, escape. Shift Alt Z, no. Control Z, Control Alt Z. Why is that not working? Control Shift Z, I forgot. Control Shift. No, Control Shift, Control. What? How do I? Oh, it's Control Z. Oh my gosh, I don't know why my brain was thinking I needed to redo when I didn't need to redo. Sorry. Anyway, so this is one way to do it. And I like this drawing an arrow function. It's kind of my personal preference. But you can also do loop dot bind parentheses this, and that's totally acceptable as well. And that will also call it. So if we hit play, we'll see it takes 1 second. We'll have to wait for this to compile. So it's compiling right now. You can see it's yellow, it then turns blue, and then it disappears when the compilation is finished. We can now hit play, count to 1 Mississippi, boom, there it goes. All right, so that is that, but we can also make this a set interval. So rather than just doing it one time, we can do this on repeat once per second. We'll actually make this once every 2 seconds, and that will cause the interval to loop forever. There is ways to cancel the interval. Really going to be out of scope for today's lesson, but just want to show you this really cool trick because it's so much easier than it used to be in code blocks. And so you could have, say, 2 images, which is basically what we do in the alt image 2, alt image 3, and then you can create an array. So we'd say image array is of type texture asset array, which equals an empty array. An array means list for reference, for anyone coming from code blocks. And then in start, we can move this up. We can move this down right here. There we go. And so what we can do is say image array dot push, which is like add to list, and then parentheses texture asset. And now we have added the alt image to the array, and we can just Control C, Control V, Control V, and call this number 2, call this number 3, And I'm going to call this number 1 just to clarify that. And then we can copy paste this. And there are better ways to do this, not even going to lie, but just for the sake. Actually, go watch that. Go try that tutorial out. It'll show you a better way. But here we can see adding image 2 and adding image 3, and then changing this to 2 and changing this to 3. We now have 3 images in our array. And then over here, we can call the texture, or what do we call that array? I forgot what we called it. We called it the image array, which really should have just been called texture. Better naming is really important, guys. Texture assets would have been a much better name because it's a list of assets. So there's an S at the end, which tells us that it's plural. It's of this type. We're only going to have one of these lists. If we're going to have multiple lists, we could define it even further, saying it's like image texture assets, and then we could have other type. Anyway, so here we need to call it texture assets, and we need to call an item from that, which for now we'll say 0. That's going to get the first item from the array. Oh, and it needs this dot. So there you go. So this dot texture assets, item 0 in the array. And what we can do now is we can define an iterator. So we can say I equals 0. And then right here, we can say, instead of using 0, we use I. And then after this, we can increment I upwards. Oh, it's this dot I for reference. This dot I. And then we can increment I by going I enter plus plus is what adds 1 to it. You can also do I plus equals 1. That's another way to increment it by 1. You can also do I equals I plus 1. Those all do the same thing. This is just the shorthand. Okay. And then after we've set it to be incremented higher, we then want to make sure that we mod it. So we use I equals I modulus the length of the array. So you go texture assets dot length. If you've never done this before, this is exactly how we did it in code blocks. But basically, we're making sure that the I value is within the indexes, so it never goes out of index. And so this loops it back to 0 when it reaches the length of the array. So if the array length is 3, so if I equals 3, it sets I to 0. All right, control save. And now we have to reference the 3 images on our thing here. So go back to our assets. Hopefully that folder's still open, and it is. This has just appeared. We can now put in a logo page and a empty background page. All right, so now if we hit play, it's going to cycle between the 3 images. We can then jump into preview mode, and every 2 seconds we'll see this update. And see this update. Now I'm a little concerned. Stop. Let's check the script. I hit save. We have texture assets 1. Oh, I forgot to say alt image 2 and 3 on this. There we go. Alt image 2, alt image 3. Control save. And then now we just gotta wait for that console to finish doing the compilation. It's in blue state, and it is done. Hey Nelia, I'll be done in just a minute, okay? All right, let's go ahead and hit play. Jump into preview mode. You'll now see that swap to the keep it kind. Now it's going to go to our Power Wash logo, and then it switches to empty, and it just loops like that forever. And that is a short version of the super awesome animated texture tutorial. So definitely check this out. Euphoria, how are we doing? Some cool stuff?
Good. Oh yeah, for sure.
Anything in here you wish we had talked about?
No, I think you covered like most of it.
Okay, cool. I had some notes that I wanted to talk about, like in-world purchasing stuff, but they're changing it actively, so I didn't really want to do that yet. Maybe I'll wait till that gets changed. And nav mesh, but I feel like that's a much harder topic, so those should be saved for another day. Okie dokie. So I think we're gonna. I don't know if you can hear my daughter. She's saying dokie dokie dokie. It's pretty funny. But yeah, that's where we're gonna end it here today. Been an absolute pleasure, Euphoria. Thanks for hanging out, giving me some company while we make this cool tutorial. If you guys have any questions, please use the MHCP Discord. Um, yes, you can always tag me at Leaks05 there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, I was like, I'm trying not to do anything time related because we have the competition right now. So, a lot of people will probably see this after the competition. But if you happen to be seeing this right today, this Saturday I'm doing a talk in the MHCP, so stay tuned for that workshop. And then next week, Friday, I'll be doing another talk on cross-screen development. So stay tuned for that series starting next week. Okie dokie. Bye for now.